Welcome to Hope Natural Health, the podcast inspiring you to be your best version. Join me, your host, Dr. Erin, naturopathic doctor, dog mom, cancer survivor, and girl boss weekly as we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Welcome back to the Hope Natural Health podcast. Last week, we discussed 6 tips to fall asleep faster. So if you have trouble sleeping, make sure to take a listen to that episode. And now I'm excited to dive into this week's show. Today, I have a special guest, Carmen Ohling, who is a holistic life coach, speaker, podcast host, and former corporate executive. She has served as an expert on many media outlets such as Fox News, Living Local, and a variety of businesses, well-being, and women-centric podcasts. Carmen has traveled the world as the founder of the Flow Academy, a holistic life coaching school for leaders, coaches, and entrepreneurs, and the Permission Slip Retreat to highlight critical issues for women and to create a better understanding about harnessing the authentic power that is inside each of us in order to design a life we truly love. So today we're going to be talking about daily rituals and how we can master them. So welcome to the show, Carmen.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for reading that really long-winded bio that I'm pretty sure I provided. So reflection back to me. This is part of rituals and self-mastery, right? Let's shorten that.
There you go. I mean, it's wonderful. It's kind of hard to be like, well, what do I take out of that? You're a wonderful human being. So I think it's fine. Don't worry. I've actually gotten bigger bios than that. So
no way. I was like, whoa. And it's kind of a tongue twister too. So I was like, dang, I need to make that simpler. I'm all about like taking complicated things and making them simple. So
I love it. And well, that's how we're going to talk about daily rituals. So first, let's start off very general, like your background, how you got into your current work, and a little bit more about what I read in that incredible bio.
Right. Yeah. So I grew up in Oregon. My husband and I, we raised our family in Oregon. I spent 16 years in corporate leadership in finance until one day I just had this strong pull inside of me. I didn't actually know what it was at the time because I was not very good at asking myself questions or turning the mirror back onto me. I was really focused outwardly on achievement and accolades, and then focused on other people and how I could get them to feel empowered and lead them. And so the day came when I gave my 2-month notice for my corporate job, and I decided to go after a dream that I had for a long time, and that was to help people with nutrition. So I became a holistic nutritionist, and again, still kind of looking outwardly. I thought, I'm going to be a personal trainer too. But I realized real quickly that people do not need help with like, eat this exact thing, do this exact workout. Well, we do need help and guidance with that. The thing we need help with the most is our mindset. That was the thing that had been helping me along my journey, and to really uncover that I was living a life not congruent with who I truly was on the inside. Because often when we grow up, just like in my story, is that I learned all these things I was talented at. So I got all these talents based on things that were presented to me, and then I practiced them, and then I got the gold star for them, or the good job, or the award, or the promotion, or whatever it might have been. And I kept going with those talents, seeking that outwardly approval. But where the incongruency came was I wasn't really honoring my gifts that were placed inside of me because I covered those up for so long. So fast forward to where I'm at today is I'm a holistic life coach, and I also teach holistic life coaching to others so they can help be the catalyst to share this good work of really designing and living a life that you love. I always like to say, be the one to show the world how great life truly is, and just invite people along on that journey with me.
Awesome. So I know people are familiar with life coaching. So how do you differ yourself as a holistic life coach? Let's start there too.
Yeah, I love this question because often I get that with the one-on-one clients that I do take. And it's really not just mindset coaching. So when you think of life coaching, it's really about like subconscious programming maybe, or just like making a plan for your life, setting goals and sticking to them. While we do all of that as well, I also like to look at everything because I like to look at the whole person. So maybe we're working on some of that mindset stuff, and then maybe some relationship things come up. Or maybe some things as being a leader or sales in their corporate career or their entrepreneurship, they need help with that. And I'm special in that I have all that experience as far as leadership goes, as far as my corporate job, as far as sales goes, entrepreneurship, starting and selling companies and being in the current role that I am right now. So we're looking at everything, and not to mention my passion for nutrition and fitness and all of that. So we look at the whole. So when a client comes to me, or when I'm teaching in Flow Academy to start out how to lead a coaching call, it's always going to be about, let's look at all they call it the wheel of life, but the different areas of life. And I modify it a little bit to what I think it has been the most important for my clients. And we rate it in different areas. And then we start tackling the areas that are rated the lowest, but also celebrating and really nurturing the areas that we're rating the highest. Because what happens often without support and accountability of a holistic life coach is that we'll go up in one area. Maybe our health will go up, but our relationships will go down. Our work will go up, but our relationships will go down, or our health will go down. And so it's finding a level that feels good to that certain individual. And it's going to be different for everyone in all aspects of life.
Yeah. So it's kind of pretty much what I do as a doctor, naturopathically. Like, we look at the body as a whole because it's all connected. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah, it's 100% a similar thing, right? Looking at the whole body versus looking at the person's whole life. And because not just one thing goes into it, and it's all interwoven and interconnected. Just like the work that you do is so important. Instead of just like, oh, symptom, here's a Band-Aid, you know, you're looking at everything together as a system, as a whole, because it all works together.
So let's dive into some ritual chat. So how do we start with daily rituals and designing our life rather than living out of default, as you like to say?
Yeah, so it really starts with building your foundation. So many of us think that we've already built a foundation, but what happens is over time, we're just adding things onto our plate without actually looking at and being considerate and using our own discernment of where we're at in our life, things that we need to let go of, things that we want to bring into our life. So really thinking about, like, what season of my life am I in? And do I have the right foundation built for my deepest priorities in this season of my life? And with what's happened over like the pandemic in the last few years, I like to think of like there's a few different seasons of life that people might be in. The elusive word, the pivot, right? Don't we all love that word? We could also say like evolution or transition, right? So people are in that, or they're in the season of it's great, but something just feels off. And we've all felt that before. That was what I felt in my corporate career, was things are great and I look successful on the outside, but something really feels off internally. Or we feel good, but we know change is needed. So we're looking to try to figure out what that change is. Or the last one is kind of a scary one. And it's just like we're just going through the motions and we're not really self-aware. So figuring out what season that you're in, and taking radical responsibility to be like, okay, where do I want to go? And what do I want in my life? And how can I carve out what my deepest priorities are in my life? And then start building that foundation upon that. So let me give you an example, because that was just like a lot of words and people are like, what are you talking about? So with this season of my life, I feel like I have a great vision. I feel like I'm going in the right direction. Of course, there's always improvement and up leveling. You could probably tell, like, I have a cold. I always think of like whenever you hit that upper limit, sometimes you get sick often, right? Because you're going to that next level. But I've discerned that my spiritual relationship is really a deep priority to me. My relationship with myself and my health, my relationship with my husband, and then my opportunity to show up and serve. And so that's my foundation. And so I need to make sure that I'm doing things and creating rituals and boundaries. And I have the energetic capacity to show up for each of those things, which might also mean that I have to say no to certain things. Because every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. Or I have to maybe end a relationship or a friendship or not see people as much, just because it's not really aligning with my deepest priorities anymore. Because if you don't have the strong foundation to stand on, you're not going to really be, you might have a vision of your life, but you're not going to be able to actually live the life that you're designing. And that's really the step that we need to get to with building the foundation, is being able to actually live the life and then have the tools that you need in order to navigate the roadblocks along the way, because you will have some roadblocks.
Oh, yeah. So these foundations or seasons, how often do you see them change for someone? Or is
it could be, it could be frequently or infrequently.
Okay.
It just really, it depends. I would have to say that it depends, like with age a little bit, right? When we're first growing up, like in our early 20s, oftentimes it's really about those talents that we have crafted, right? And that acknowledgement and accolades that we're being given, versus really falling back on what our gifting is, or like our real superpower and our opportunity to serve the world. It's like, what can I accomplish? And, what kind of things can I get? So it depends on age. It also depends on your environment. So one of the things that I noticed in my life is it took me a while to get to a season where I was going to make a great change, because around me, I didn't have anyone exposing me or expanding me to something that was bigger and greater. I was like kind of the top of the totem pole. It was like, okay, graduate high school, go to college, get a good job, have a family, buy a house, don't have any debt, save for retirement, and you do all the things. And then you even have the dog and the fence and, the husband and the family. And I didn't really have anyone expanding my mind. So having an environment that's conducive to expansion also is a big caveat to that. And people can get that just by putting themselves in, listening to podcasts like this, putting themselves into rooms with other people that are doing things, that are just that next level above you. So it really just depends on our experiences and how much we let our experiences, that need for outside validation, and our conditioning, like, hold us back.
Yeah, very interesting. I was going to say it's obviously different for everyone. So, and then how often do you recommend checking in on where you're at to see if, maybe I need to go to another level, or maybe need to take a step back, or is it just kind of happen? I kind of know the answer, because for me, it just kind of happens. But if you're kind of just in a state of being, how do you recommend, or how often check in?
Yeah, so everyone's going to love this answer. I'm a daily check-in person. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be making drastic changes every day, but I just want to check in, and I want to make sure that I'm showing up as my highest and best for those things that are my deepest priority each and every day. And so you'd ask me initially about, where do you start with daily rituals? And I think a daily ritual that everybody can start with is, in the morning, 15 or 20 minutes, do one of two things. One, go on a walk in nature without listening to a podcast, without having music. Just be with yourself, your thoughts, source, being able to have that inner knowing, listen to your intuition. Or you could start by journaling and asking yourself some questions each day. Questions that evoke curiosity, because curiosity is really the catalyst between where you are today and where you want to go. So maybe you're asking questions like, okay, yesterday, did my actions match my aspirations? Just checking in on yourself, right? Because it's hard sometimes, if we're not being self-aware, to actually really live the life that we're designing, that we want. You could also ask yourself, what am I currently tolerating? Or what am I resisting? Because often resistance comes to us in a way. And resistance is just really like, we feel like a little bit of pressure when we're like pushing into uncomfortable. And there's two forms of resistance. One, where it's like really constricting, where you can really feel it and it's like, it's not meant for you. That's not your way you should be going.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is where like, you're like, oh, it seems like expansive, but you feel that little fear inside. That type of resistance is the resistance that you can push into, because if you can get to the other side of it, then that's where growth happens. That's where magic, that's where breakthroughs, aha moments happens. Other questions you can simply ask yourself each day is, how do I want to feel today? Because really focusing on feeling good every day should be a priority. I mean, how often do people go, today I'm going to focus on feeling good? And then what do I need to do in order to do that? Maybe it's just like taking a 10-minute break, drinking more water. It could be small, simple rituals that you put into your everyday that could make a big difference. Because if we're feeling good and giving up good, high vibrational energy, then that's what we're going to get in return. If we're feeling like crap and that's what we're giving off, then that's what we're going to get in return. So how do I want to feel is something that is really great. Also that walk and getting out in nature, you know, it's going to release those good, feel good endorphins in your body. And it's just really going to reset. And you're most connected to spirit, to source, to your inner guidance in the morning. And you can really set the tone and your intention for the day by just having a 15-20 minute ritual, or longer if you want to combine a few of those things I mentioned.
Well, anyone follows me on Instagram, you know that I'm always out walking Diesel Dog, and he actually forces me to do that. So if you need someone to hold you accountable, get a dog, because they'll make you take him for a walk.
Agree. That's where I started my walking. We had a 90-pound boxer. Her name was Nala. And she walked every day. She was like my baby. Once our kids got older, I was like, that was my baby. You know, it was like our family dog when they were growing up. So yeah, get a dog. It's so fun. And I'm in Miami Beach, so it's like endless summer every day. So walking is just so beautiful.
Yeah, same here in Arizona. I mean, we have extremes, so I always do it in the morning. But you mentioned in the beginning about setting boundaries. So this is something that I honestly didn't even know what a boundary was until a few years ago. But it's something that I love doing and setting new ones, you know, pretty much as often as I can. So how do we protect our energy and set boundaries?
First, I want to address energy. So often we are scheduling our days based on time. And I want everybody to have a little like shift in their perception here. And that's what A Course in Miracles calls a miracle, is like, what if I started scheduling my day based on energy that I had available versus the time allotted? Maybe like adding things like today, you're doing podcast interviews. So probably after all these podcast interviews, you're not going to be primed and ready and have the energy and capacity to like write a bunch of like really good copy or like write a new paragraph for your book. I have no idea if you're writing a new book right now, but
I'm not, but you're absolutely right. I don't have the energy to do anything else after this.
Yeah. And so what happens often is we start our day with 20 things and then maybe we complete some, or we do half of 3 because we can't focus, right? And so then tomorrow we have the same amount done. And so instead of scheduling by time, if you schedule by the energy and the capacity that you have available, one, you're going to experience more joy. You're going to be more present in the moment. So you're actually going to remember and allow yourself to experience pleasure. And you're going to be able to connect with the people you're connecting with on a deeper basis. So energy is so important. And so I want people to really think about that when they are doing their schedule. Now, setting boundaries. There's 2 main people that you need to set boundaries with: other people and yourself. So first things first, the boundary that you set with yourself is your new standard for living. So if you're designing and dreaming up this dream life that you actually want to implement and then integrate, you need to set new standards for yourself. And then you need to hold yourself to those standards by setting certain boundaries. So maybe that looks like in the morning, you are going to get up and you're going to do a morning ritual. So your boundary for yourself is you're going to be in bed with no TV, no phone, no anything by 10 p.m. so that you're ready to get up in the morning and do your morning ritual. Often we think of it backwards, like we keep forcing and forcing, okay, I'm going to do this morning ritual, I'm going to do this morning ritual, and we don't actually do it because we haven't actually set the appropriate boundary or the standard for ourselves to set ourselves up for success. So that's the first boundary that we set, always with ourselves. We always want to look and clean up our side of the street first. The second boundary is with other people. And how many times have we said, like, so-and-so keeps breaking my boundaries? We probably all said that before, but realistically, they're not breaking the boundaries. We're allowing them to because we're not holding them to the boundaries. And usually that goes back to our conditioning, something like wanting to be a people pleaser. You know, if we don't say yes, or if we don't allow them to do that, like they've always done it, we won't feel love and acceptance, right? So just recognizing that we have that. So when we're setting boundaries, we want to set them early and often and from a place of love. So what that might mean is, for example, I work from home and my husband also works from home part of the time. He's a massage therapist. So something that we started doing as a standard is having dinner tonight or each night together. We talk about our celebrations from the day, like what went really well. And we also talk about the next day and how we can support each other, so that we have an opportunity to say, oh, I'm doing this at this time. I'm going to need this capacity, you know, so we know not to, quote unquote, bother each other. We know when we can be with each other. And it works so beautifully because we're setting it early and often from a place of love. If you're just starting out with setting boundaries, a great way to say it is, you know, can I share something with you? I'm working on this, whatever the thing is, right? I'm working on eating healthier. And it's really important to me because I notice when I eat healthy, I feel really good and have energy, not only for myself, but for our relationship. So you could support me by like not buying that crappy food and putting it in the cupboard or whatever it is. And so you've just communicated something from a place of love by saying like, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is really important to me because of this. Not only is it going to benefit me, but it's going to benefit you. And this is how you could support me. Can I get your support? And you say specifically, because oftentimes we think people are mind readers and they should just know I told them that I'm on this new healthy eating and now they're bringing in the whatever your thing is, you know, I don't know, the Cheetos or whatever. And people don't know. But if you tell them early, often, specifically from a place of love, and you hold your boundary, that goes back to keeping the boundary for yourself and the standard that you set for yourself, because you're never going to achieve the life that you're designing and actually be able to live it if you're not keeping your standards.
So true. Boundaries are fun and they're like freeing when you actually set them.
Yeah, they are. And boundaries actually, a lot of people think that it creates less freedom or it creates less access to you, but it actually creates more because you're going to be more focused and intentional during those times with whatever you're doing when you need the boundary, whether that's just taking time for yourself to rest and relax or do focused work or whatever it is, so that you'll be able to show up even more in the relationships that are so important to you.
Oh, so true. Very true. So I challenge you to set a boundary. So if we want to take inspired action, how do you recommend asking better questions to do this inspired action?
Anytime you catch yourself in low vibrational thoughts, then what I'd want you to do, and I'll give you some examples of this, but then what I would want you to do is to question yourself, like where is that coming from? And then ask a better question. So a low vibrational thought might be something like, I should be, and then you fill in the blank with whatever you should be doing. Or why can't I just, or I see them doing this, I should be able to do that too. So when you're in some of those low vibrational thoughts, recognizing the language that you use often. And so you have to keep track. It's like collecting evidence of the crappy thoughts that you have or collecting evidence of when you change them into a new higher vibrational thought and how that works for you and how that actually changes your day and you start feeling better. So instead of asking, instead of telling yourself, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, why not ask a better question of, look at everything that you have set to do for the day and say, is this necessary? Why is this necessary? Because sometimes we're doing things just because we've always done them.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't actually need to be doing them.
Mm-hmm.
An example I'll give that maybe women or moms could relate to is I held this really high standard for cleaning my house when my kids were young. And I sat at one point and I was working like 60 hours a week. We always had family dinner together. And my only one day off on Sunday was usually spent like cleaning. Now, if I'm asking myself now, was I focused on my deepest priorities, which would be my family? No, I'm not. And I sat there and I was like, is someone really going to come? Is this really necessary to clean like the baseboards every week, to do like, deep cleaning every week? No, it's not. So what can we do in order to make it so we can focus on what our deepest priorities were? And in that moment, I was like, oh, everyone could be in charge of something, because guess what? I don't have to be the controller of all the things. I used to have a control problem too. And so everybody can do something. Someone can do the floors one week. Someone can do the bathrooms. Someone can clean up after the dog and walk the dog. Someone can do the kitchen, and we all just do our own laundry. And so what does that do? That takes it off of my plate. It builds resourcefulness and resilience within my family. And I'm focused back on my deepest priorities on the day that I am most available to be there with them.
Yeah.
And so it really just goes back to like asking better questions. Anytime you feel uncomfortable, anytime you feel something is off, anytime you're telling yourself those low vibrational thoughts, just sit with it for a second. And sometimes the question might be like, what do I actually need in this moment? And the next question to that is like, okay, well, who do I need to ask to support me? Because sometimes we have to ask for help. And a story we often tell ourselves is that we need to be able to do it all alone, or we're not supported. And so we have to do it all by ourselves. But people need people. And I mean, the Harvard study that goes back however many years to the 1930s, where they're studying people and the happiness of them, the number one thing that came through over and over again is good relationships make a good life. So people need people. So answering your question is basically being able to think about your thoughts and how they're affecting you, and think about how you can change them.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that means asking for help.
Yep. And that's okay. I learned that the hard way when I was going through my cancer diagnosis, and that was tough because we're afraid to ask for help. And it's oftentimes easier just to do it ourselves too. But asking for help is okay. You can do it.
It's okay, and it's necessary.
Yeah.
And just think about, like, as an individual, for you, for me, for anyone listening, how do we feel when we genuinely care about somebody and we help them?
So good.
It feels so good. So anytime you're feeling resistance on asking for help, just remember how it feels when you help someone, and then that'll help be the catalyst to be able to ask for that help. And a lot of times, something that I've come to realize is that I used to think I had to know it all and be able to do it all. And that is just silly. And it's exhausting, and no one should ever have that expectation. People can do it better than I can. And that, going back to talents and gifts, right? Either it's something they've practiced and they're talented at, or it's just a gift that God has given them. And so allow them to be in that and allow them to use that.
Oh, gosh. These are such good nuggets. I learned a lot. Definitely going to ask more questions. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we wrap this up?
The last thing is I get a lot of questions when I talk about talents and gifts. And I wanted to invite everybody. I actually did a quiz around gifting. I call it your superpower quiz. You can actually find out your free, unique superpower or gifting. I wrote this quiz based on the Enneagram, human design, and emotional intelligence. So people could text me the word superpower to 503-386-2981 and take the quiz for free. And that'll really, really help them with kind of deciphering that difference between talents and gifts, and maybe where they want to go on designing their life next and what they want to implement.
Awesome. Yes. And that's a note that we will have in the show notes. I was going to talk about that too. What Enneagram are you? I'm just curious.
2.
A 2. I'm a 6.
Oh, you're a 6. Yes, I was actually mistyped as a 6 for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love the Enneagram. Actually, that was like mind-blowing for me to get typed. I'm like, this tells me so much about myself. Like it's wild. And even human design is like, I'm a manifestor generator. And I was like, yep, that's me to a T as well.
Yeah, I know. There's such great self-awareness tools to really get to like that other side of self-mastery, to really understand like why you tick and be able to, like, the goal isn't to be like perfect all the time, but it's just being able to come back faster. In the face of a challenge, it's coming back faster. In the face of a disappointment or whatever, coming back faster.
Yeah.
You know, so that's something that we go through the Enneagram and Human Design in my Flow Academy.
Oh, cool.
And people are blown away all the time, just like what you said.
Awesome. Well, that'll be in the show notes. And we'll finish up with one question I ask everyone. What is your best or favorite health tip?
So I know that you were going to ask this question listening to the podcast. And so I went through a variety of them in my head, but I'm going to go back to the one that people neglect the most, and quality sleep. So if you can get quality sleep every night, I would say that's almost over nutrition or movement or anything, because you could be feeding yourself as much good food. You could be doing as much meditation as you want, as much, you know, workout, weight training, resistance training was going to be my close second. But if you're not allowing your body that time for rest and recovery, like, none of it's just all going to go to the wayside. And actual sleep, where you're getting restful sleep, is what's most important. Yep.
Quality over quantity. So important. I talk about sleep all the time. And it's amazing how many people are not sleeping. And there's that, you know, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Well, and your last podcast was on it. And that's why I was like, sleep is so important. I neglected it for so long. And it's always the thing, like, if we're going to choose to neglect something, it's that. Yeah. What if we chose to neglect like something different?
Yeah, like the laundry or the cleaning.
How much better would we feel? Oh, yeah. Because I know when I'm sleep deprived, one, I'm going to be hungrier. Like, I just want to chew my arm off, right? I'm going to be grouchier. I'm not going to be as aligned and focused. Like, I'm not going to be my highest self, right? I'm not going to be intuitive or any of that. My workout's going to be crappier. You know, I'm just going to show up less than my highest self. But if you get sleep, you just set yourself up for the most amazing day. So,
well, everyone has a ton of assignments after listening to this podcast. We're going to sleep more. We're going to ask better questions. We're going to start off our day with those one of two habits or rituals. Oh gosh, there's so much. So Carmen, this has been wonderful. I'm so glad that we were able to record this and chat. And I know it's valuable for all the listeners. So thank you again for being here today.
Thank you for having this platform, and thank you for the work that you do too. I'm grateful.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, and we'll see you all next week.